Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lana. I have some time before work and not a lot of time, so I thought I would film a short video updating you on what I've been reading lately. I thought for some reason I was gonna talk about The Murder at the Vicarage by Agatha Christie because I was sure that this was the first book I read this year, but I just checked Goodreads. I finished it in on the 26th of December of 2021. Why did I think it was this year? Anyway, I'm not really gonna talk about this, but I really enjoyed it. So the only book that I've actually finished this year was the audiobook of the book The Maid by Rita Prose. She's from Toronto, Canada. And this was a mystery thriller that I saw on Zuky's channel actually, so I'm gonna link that one below as well. I really like the cover, and I like that it's about a hotel maid finding someone dead. That vibe really appealed to me, so I picked up the audiobook. I work out at home, and I realized that if I listen to music or if the TV is on and there's a show or movie, it doesn't matter if I've seen it before or not, my workout lasts like an hour because I keep getting distracted. And so I found that podcasts work very well with working out, and audiobooks. Actually, audiobooks even better than podcasts, because the podcast that I've been listening to, podcast was mostly just my favorite murder podcast, which is a kind of like a true crime comedy podcast. It's very funny, and I found that being told a lot of jokes while you're working out is not really conducive to a good workout, because I kept falling from my plank because I needed to laugh. So audiobooks. So I started listening to The Maid, and it follows a girl called Molly Gray, who is a maid in a hotel. She struggles with social skills and misreads the intentions of others, which means that she is an unreliable narrator, and she ends up finding a dead body in the hotel, and one thing leads to another, and she becomes the center of the investigation. This is not a spoiler, it's in the blurb. Molly misinterprets so much from other people's reactions and conversations and what they actually mean. So you as a reader, as you follow her and you read the conversations she has with people and you see the actions of other people around her, you see way more than she does, and you understand what's happening and how people are treating her in a way that she does not understand. And on the one hand, you get to see how people take advantage of her not reading their intentions correctly, but on the other, it's very interesting reading from the perspective of a person who has a very strict right and wrong in her mind, and the thing that she relies on to the most is the sort of rules of, I want to say rules of conduct, I'm not sure if that's the correct phrase to use in this context, but the way she learned manners and what is appropriate to say at any given time. She loves her job as a maid. She loves cleaning. She loves when everything is in order. She understands that world, and it's very fun seeing how she relies so much on the training she was given by her hotel manager when he pretty much gave the maid's scripts on what to say to the guests and how to conduct yourself, which it's very fun seeing how that is a comfort zone for her, because that role of the maid is something she understands, and she knows exactly how she's supposed to act and react, and how everything outside of it completely throws her off. In terms of plot, for the most part, I enjoyed it a lot. In the end, it did feel a little bit like everything came into place so perfectly. Like it was just a great, perfect puzzle. And as soon as I thought that, there was like a twist in the very end. When you think everything is done, there is a twist that's thrown at you, and I usually enjoy those things, but that particular twist just felt a little off to me. I wish I could tell you why. I thought about possible reasons why I didn't like it. I couldn't think of any. It just didn't feel right for me. But it absolutely does not diminish my enjoyment of this book. And I gave it 4 stars. Oh, one more thing. I did mention how we get to see people take advantage of her and how we, for the most part, see the world around her better than she does. But what I really enjoyed is that the author did find moments and parts in the plot where you misread the situation completely, or you misread the character, and actually Molly was right. So as I read The Maid, I've also started The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. It's been on my TBR shelf since a long time ago. I actually remember filming the video when I hauled this book, and it's been a while. I never felt the urge to pick it up until the beginning of this year, where I just looked at my TBR and I felt like this is the book. This is the book. This is the book that I want to read right now. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually surprised at how much I'm enjoying it. I am over halfway done with it. It's probably like 60% in, I would say. And it keeps surprising me. So the reason why The Moonstone is interesting to me in general. The Moonstone is considered the first, or one of the first, detective novels written in England. It has to do with what was happening in England at that time. I read, was it 2 years ago, a book called Mr. Wicker something. Let me find it. Anyway, I'm gonna find it and put it here. And it's a non-fiction book that talks about how the police force was created in England, how the first detectives came to be and what were they like, and how the public reacted to them. And the whole book tells the true crime story of a murder of a little boy in middle-class Victorian England, and how this detective, Mr. I want to say Wicker, became very famous for taking care of this case. And there was a lot of scandal, and it's fascinating if you're into true crime, if you're into you know, history and detectives. It's fascinating to read how a murder investigation looked like in the very first, you know, days of a detective being a profession that people did, and became very famous. And not to spoil it, because it's a true crime story that is pretty well known, I want to say. The whole thing was that he basically said that the person who killed this little boy was his 15-year-old sister, which created a big scandal. I'm pretty sure he ended up having a nervous breakdown because all of Victorian England was outraged that this man, who was not a gentleman, you know, went into this Victorian home and accused a young lady of a murder. Like, it was just the whole thing. Important part of the case had to do with her nightgown. I'm pretty sure it's a nightgown. It had to do with laundry, that her nightgown went missing. And in that book, when it talks about detectives and how they influenced the public so much, there was such a big part of the pop culture of Victorian England, how it influenced the writers at that time, how it influenced Dickens to write a detective in Bleak House that was inspired by Mr. Wicker, and Dickens was actually a big fan of him. And The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, that's Sergeant Cuff, right? That's his name? Yeah, Sergeant Cuff was also inspired by this true person that existed, Detective Wicker. And moreover, Wilkie Collins uses a nightgown as one of the important parts of the case that he's solving, which I thought was very cool. Anyway, all this to say that I was very interested in this book. And I really like how it's written. Story of the moonstone. Moonstone, a priceless Indian diamond which had been brought to England as spoils of war, is given to Rachel Verinder on her 18th birthday. That very night the stone is stolen. Suspicion then falls on a hunchbacked housemaid, on Rachel's cousin Franklin Blake and a troupe of mysterious Indian jugglers, and on Rachel herself. The phlegmatic Sergeant Cuff is called in, and with the help of Batteridge, the Robinson Crusoe reading loquacious steward, the mystery of the missing stone is ingeniously solved. I feel like this is a little misleading. So right off the bat, there is not a lot, but there is racist things towards Indians in this book, which is not great, but I was kind of expecting. Also, the hunchbacked housemaid, there are comments about her that are very ableist and disgusting. And then she had like a friend that people called Limping Lucy because she also had a disability, and it sort of talked about like, oh, they found each other because they're both disabled and they understand each other, and said that's why they're friends. Which, like, Limping Lucy, what? So the thing that I like about this book, basically the whole premise is that this guy Franklin Blake, a English gentleman, he is of the family that had the moonstone stolen from them, and apparently it's many years after that whole event. He is collecting people's witness accounts of the whole moonstone thing. So this book has several parts. The very first one is prologue, and it says extracted from a family paper about the guy who basically stole the moonstone in the first place in India and brought it to England. And then we go into the first chapter, first part, which is from steward of the family called Batteridge, and he's basically writing saying, oh, Mr. Blake asked me to write this, so here's what I remember. So the narrative is from his perspective until the main characters of the story leave and go to London, and then we go to another section that is written from a lady that stayed with them, and she also is saying how, oh, Mr. Blake asked me to write this and he's gonna pay me for this, and thank God I kept a diary, so here's what happened on that day and here's what happened on that day. And the thing that confused me in the very beginning, starting with the Batteridge part, was that I wasn't sure if the opinion that I'm getting is that of the author as like a truth that, you know, the way he sees the world, or is it specifically this person, this old man in this country house, you know, this is how he sees the world and this is how he's interpreting things around him. This comment of this disabled girl and the Indian jugglers and all of that came from him, and the whole time I wasn't sure if Wilkie Collins was trying to comment on how this man sees the world, or is it Wilkie Collins? But there are other moments that are so crystal clear that it's Batteridge, and it's just, he's very weird in many aspects. There's a lot of sexism coming from Batteridge, but it's so ridiculous that it's comic. The way he talks about women and even his daughter and the ladies he's serving, it's just, it is very sexist, but it's so over the top, and he talks about it with such a strong, like, oh, I know the world because I lived many years in this world and I know everything there is to know, which makes it very funny. But yeah, it took me a moment to understand that, oh, this is a character, like this is a thing he's doing on purpose and not just commenting on women in general. And sometimes Batteridge would really irk me. He's just so dramatic. And he also has a very strict ideas of, you know, what is right, what is wrong, what is correct, what is impolite, and how people should conduct themselves. And it gets a little tiring reading from his perspective. So I was so happy to finally go to the second part, which moves to a different person, to a woman in, well, that time they were in London. And from the very first page, I got really excited because she sounded, I'm not gonna say she sounded cool, but she was just like, I know that I'm being paid for this, but I will not be sugarcoating things. I will be saying things how they were because my opinions cannot be bought. And I was like, oh yes, she will tell us how it is. Yeah, turns out she is like a very aggressive Christian. Like she's very, very, very religious. Also to a point of comedy, and it's so dramatic. It's so dramatic, and she has very strong opinions on everything and how people should conduct themselves. I really enjoyed this part, that apart from the plot, we get different perceptions of reality and what's happening around us from these people who are minor characters in the story, and they're sort of in the background, and we get to see their ridiculous personalities. And there's so many funny quotes that I've been tabbing, which I'm not gonna read you all of them or any. Yeah, I just finished her part, and now I'm moving to the next person that I've not read from before, but I've seen him in other parts. So I wonder what his mind is like, what he is thinking. And also, yeah, the Moonstone, 19th century England. The main character, Rachel, who's 18 years old, and she's beautiful in all of those things. She has two possible love interests, and both of them are her cousins. And it's... Anyway, so this is the book that I've been reading, and I just started 2 more books. First is a buddy read with Vannya. Check out her YouTube videos. It's not booktube really, it's more vlogging, and the style of her videos, the way she films things, the way she edits, I'm just in awe every time. And her Instagram is beautiful as well, and we've enjoyed similar books in the past. And we chose to read The Comfort Book by Matt Haig, and it's a non-fiction collection of things that bring him comfort, that he wrote down at a certain point that helped him through whatever he was going through. So it's little poems, it's quotes, it's lists of things, it's like tiny stories. It feels like a type of book that would just be great to have around, one that you can open on any page. You know, if you're struggling or if you need some comfort, you open whatever page and you read what's on it. And I feel like that would work well. I don't have the physical copy of it. I really wish I did, to be honest. I'm reading it on ebook, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I just started it, so that's all I can tell you for now. And the other book that I just started listening to the audiobook of is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. This book is bizarre. I knew it as a mystery thriller that talks about a serial killer, and I'm not sure what's happening right now. I think I'm like on chapter 3 or 4, and it starts from the POV of a man, from first person, and you can right off the bat tell that he is an unreliable narrator. I was working out when I started listening to the audiobook, and at one point I had to stop and try to remember how old he was, because I couldn't figure out from the way he was saying, because the guy who's narrating the audiobook, he's definitely an adult, but there were parts of it that didn't feel adult. So yeah, very interesting character. I'm not sure what's happening. There are things that are hinted at, but I'm careful about jumping to conclusions just yet, because I'm just beginning this. But the thing that really I was not expecting, the second POV that we got so far, is from his cat. When it just started, I realized that, oh, this is the cat. part of me was just like, oh great, like this is such a good idea. We get like a very unreliable narration from the owner of the cat, but here's the cat who will tell us what actually is happening, because cats are practical and they will not care to lead you astray, right? No. I did read on Goodreads in the reviews that people were saying how it starts off slow and confusing, but then there are so many incredible twists that you can't put it down. So I am eagerly waiting for that. This video now feels long and I have to leave in 20 minutes, so I'm gonna go. Oh my god, if you've listened this far, leave me a flower emoji so I know that you're here. And thank you so much for watching. And it's just very busy lately and it's hard to find time to film and edit, but I'm working on it, and thank you for your patience, and bye. I will see you in my next video.